Hey there. Welcome to another episode of Carve Your Own Fucking Path, a podcast made to inspire you to create a life and business on your own terms. You'll hear candid interviews with people who have boldly decided to blaze their own trail, and the occasional solo show with me, your host. I'm Willa McDonough, on-camera coach, storyteller, and remote video producer. 5 years ago, I moved from my home base of San Francisco to the coast of Portugal, taking a big leap into the unknown. Some called it courageous. I called it carving my own fucking path. Today, I live in Lisbon and run a business that elevates your online presence, helping you show up confidently on camera to create videos that showcase your brand and personality so you can get more visibility and attract clients by being yourself. If you're just starting out in business or you've been doing it for a while, you're sure to pick up tidbits of actionable advice and hopefully feel inspired by stories from people who have chosen the unconventional and sometimes messy path. And if you've been waiting for a sign to start carving your own fucking path, this is it. I'm so happy you're here. My next guest, Megan Shaylor, is all about keeping it real. She has a loyal following on Instagram, AKA entirely koala queen. And her definition of authenticity is being imperfect. So she talks about her struggles with extreme anxiety, addiction, codependency, single parenthood, dating and relationships, and everything in between. Through that, her mission is to break the stigma around mental health and having hard conversations with ourselves so that we can love ourselves more, so this journey to self-acceptance. Okay, on to the show. Here's Megan Shaylor. Thank you so much, Megan, for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And so I don't want to put you in a box and label and, intro you. So you are on Instagram, and that's how I found you. So you have quite a presence online. Tell people who you are online. Let's start there. And then, and then your path, take us back to, the path that you were on previously and that led you to creating this Instagram.
Mm-hmm. So basically, obviously my path it's had many different directions. What brought me to Instagram originally was the keto diet. Mm. And, I started showing up there with all of that. But what I actually didn't realize at the time was that I was suffering really bad from disordered eating. So I kind of cringe when I go back and I watch these videos of me going on a 3 or 4 day fast and getting upset with myself for eating blueberries. But that I'm starting to look back on that, and I find that really hard to deal with because, I was putting that out there and that was irresponsible. I feel I didn't know better at the time.
Right.
Disordered eating was something that has been with me my whole life. I was raised in a very dysfunctional, chaotic family. Everyone had their own severe wounds and traumas. And I developed mental illness. What I now know is pretty severe anxiety at around the age of, I think it started to show at around the age of 8. And it was left untreated. I wasn't allowed to have that. It was, when I displayed symptoms of that kind of depression and sadness, I was told, cut that out. You're not allowed, not in those words, but it wasn't allowed. So, when you live your life with an untreated mental illness, you will find ways to cope in the world and to medicate yourself.
Absolutely.
What I found was addiction. I even remember at the age of 8, I became addicted to video games. And that addiction just lasted. Then it became food. And then I became the fat child. And when you're the fat child, everyone teases you. So that doesn't contribute to good self-esteem when you're already in a very low place. So at around the age of 13 or 14, I found an eating disorder. And, that stayed with me on and off. Anytime I lost control of my life, I resorted to food to control myself or to feel like I had some sense of control in the world. And at around the age of 16, I started heavy substance abuse.
Okay.
And I used to do that at school because like I would never have done it at home, but school
Mm-hmm.
was, I don't know why school seemed
Why
like
not?
it's, you,
Yeah.
you'll find anything you can, and
Yeah.
I believe that that's what I did. I found what I could to survive in the world. And when you
Mm-hmm.
bring disordered eating, you've got substance abuse, it's just a recipe for chaos and disaster.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had just lived my life in survival mode. And, I eventually, skipped forward all these years. I was married, I became a mum, but I couldn't connect to my family. I didn't know
Mm.
how.
Okay.
And, I would find that I'd go on these diets and I would feel so alive and I'd have all this motivation and ideas. And I felt that that was me. So I started this Instagram to talk to a community about how much I just loved this diet and how I lived and breathed it. And I gathered this community around me, which was great. It's lovely. And I'm so
Mm-hmm.
grateful. And I've still got the majority of that community that I built still there with me, because what I realized is that they weren't there for a diet. They were there for me,
Mm-hmm.
because in my path to, going through my sobriety and everything, I started to show up as myself. And I started to talk about all the emotional things that I was going through. Quite often I'd burst into tears and I'd have snot falling out of my nose on camera, and everyone's like, "We love you, girl. Keep going."
Oh, whoa. Yeah. So,
It was discovering that I could be loved for me. That's my background story. And it was amazing
mhm.
that Instagram, out of all places, where everyone says it's fake, it's not real. Yes, it is. It just depends how real you are on that platform.
Yes. And that is the theme of this series that we're talking about, showing up and being seen. So you're using a platform in the way that ultimately I think it's designed is for us to
Mm.
connect, and build a community. So what was that process? So you're sharing things about the diet, but what's really happening is so many other things like underneath, these layers. Was there any moments of apprehension when you were showing up in this new way that people had never seen you before?
There
Friends, per se.
was. Yeah, there was. At first, when it was all about the diet, I was more than happy to do that. But when I started to share these little snippets of what I was feeling and my emotions, my binge eating and things like that, I
Mm-hmm.
started to feel scared. Like sometimes I would do a post and the sickening feeling that I would get afterwards would be it never stopped me, but it was a lot. But then
Yeah.
I just discovered that the more times I did it, that like the response that I wasn't doing it for the response, I was doing it to express myself. But then I was noticing, oh wow, people are really resonating with this.
Mm-hmm.
And that kept me strong in my purpose of just learning to express myself.
Okay. Do you know the feeling that you're talking about? Can you identify what that feeling was? Like, what was your biggest fear?
I feel like it's not safe.
Mm.
Like like, do you know what it is? Actually, I'm just really trying to tap into that right now. It's the fear of not being accepted. It's the
Mm.
fear of being criticized. It's the fear of judgment.
Mm-hmm.
It's really scary.
Yes. And how was your self-talk? That might be a harder question to go back to that time to think. But this judgment, do you find that it was a reflection of how you were treating yourself?
Definitely. My self talk had gotten a lot better by the stage that I'd set up my Instagram, because by then I'd already been in therapy for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I had learnt a bit of that reparenting on how to talk myself through those emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, my self talk can be pretty harsh sometimes, but I've learnt to talk back.
Mm-hmm. Good.
So I
Yeah.
might have this little war going on, but I'm
Right.
I'm definitely talking back. It hasn't stopped me.
Okay. And how long ago was this? Just like the time frame for all of this, like you're showing up and then the sort of like reveal, and how fast have you built this community?
I started the Instagram in November of 2017.
Okay.
It built
Yeah.
very fast, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It had gotten at one stage, it had gotten to 24,000 people. But when I stopped doing the keto diet and I started talking about mental health, I lost a lot of followers. But I had to learn to let that go, because I can't my whole identity was raveled up in a diet. And this is how smart diet culture is, right? I found a way to feed my addiction, but with being online with my food addiction, which created this audience, which that's clever.
Yeah.
because that ingrains you even more. So to learn that, I had to unravel that keto identity and be okay with people are going to leave me now. And when you've suffered a lifetime of abandonment issues, people leaving you isn't just like, oh, see you later. It hurts. But I also had to learn to let go. So it's not like I don't feel those emotions and those fears.
Yeah.
But I persevere through it.
So this has been a personal journey in real time.
Yes, absolutely. That is such a good way of putting it. Yes.
And I mean, it's so powerful. And whenever I'm kind of jumbling around, but what is your why? Like, you're pushing past that fear, you're posting, you're getting out of that comfort zone. What was pushing you forward?
At the time, I wasn't so sure, but I'm definitely very sure of what it is now that it was. I never used to be able to really articulate that jumbled mess that was swirling around in my mind, but my why is really defined now. My mission is so people never, ever have to feel alone like I did, because my childhood was so lonely and I had no one who understood my pain. I had no one who wanted to help me through that pain. And I know that when I speak my truth, I'm helping another person through their pain and I connect with them. And we're not connecting over the pain as such. We're connecting over the fact that we are all the same and we've all got the same emotions and feelings, and it's okay to talk about it and it's okay to accept within yourself. So my mission is I never want anyone to feel alone, because that is not a way to feel. It's horrible.
Right. And you speak on anxiety a lot. So the mental health is a big piece.
It is.
For you, is it something that you identify with? That might be a hard question, but like through this journey, have you been able to like potentially like distance yourself from it a little bit because you're now speaking openly?
Yes. Well, there was a stage where I used to believe I was my trauma. Like I was my trauma. I didn't know that there was a separation. I didn't know how to separate myself from anything. I was everything. Whatever the label, I was that. And I've learned now, since I've separated myself from the trauma, I think that's why I'm able to speak so freely about it now, is because I realize I'm not the trauma. So I'm able to depersonalize it to be a story about me, but it's not me and it doesn't define who I am anymore.
Very powerful. Yes. What did you envision going back to this childhood time and, looking towards the future? Did you have any path that you thought you were going to take? Did you have what was your vision back then?
I thought I was going to be an actress.
You are.
Because
in your life.
In a weird way, it's kind of turned out that way. But acting was a way in childhood that I found a way to be seen. And I would act. I was in drama school. I would put on nightly performances for my family. And it was the one time I felt that they were so open and receptive to me having fun and being in my element. I was never judged or criticized. They loved it. And I learned that acting was a way to express everything that was going on, and I could just be so free. And so I thought I was going to be an actress, but unfortunately, I didn't have the encouragement of my family to pursue those goals. There was never any help with that. And, a lot of people can, as you say, carve their own path, but I didn't have the ability to do that because I was very codependent with my family and very, very reliant on them. I didn't have any independence at all.
Okay.
So it was just one of those dreams that just died.
Is it still alive in you?
I think so. I think that's that thing that I had back then is what's in me now as well, to put myself out there. Because I remember when I was on that stage as a little girl, I felt so alive. And I think that part is still there. But I don't need to act anymore. I don't need to be someone else. I can actually just learn to be myself.
Exactly. And so there was a large part of your childhood that you didn't feel seen. You had mentioned that. So this showing up authentically, because again, I think you are the spokesperson for this authenticity. Your Instagram is hilarious. And it takes a lot of courage to do that. I mean, honestly, it's like, just taking all the walls down. So what is your definition of authenticity these days? And how has it changed over the years?
How is my definition of authenticity? My definition of it is just be as real as you can. Like the more real you are, and the more that you're accepted for just being real and being human, showing your human side, showing your imperfection. Perfectionism is something that just is so debilitating for me. But the more that I show up imperfect, the more I can accept that I don't have to be perfect. So authenticity is defined to me by being real, and it's allowing yourself to be imperfect.
So what would be some advice for someone that's struggling? Let's say they have a business, they have to show up, and they may not really be comfortable with that. What would be any advice from your side and your experience that you could give them?
I mean, I can't say anything that's groundbreaking other than you won't know what's on the other side unless you start doing it. And you just be consistent. It's really, really hard to push through those emotional hurdles in allowing yourself to be seen. But all I can say is that everyone out there just wants to see real. We're all sick of seeing these polished versions of everything, because it makes us if you're not a polished person, you feel bad about not being so polished.
Yeah.
And when you see other people out there that aren't so polished and they're out there doing it, it helps others do it too. So just get out there, just do it and be imperfect.
Yes, definitely. I totally agree. I think the more that you share your story, your truth, it's the permission slip, for other people. And what kind of relationships have you formed in this community?
So many. I talk every day to people. I've made really, really good friends. I do these collaborations. It's really nice. It's really nice because when you've grown up in a life of toxic connections and you start connecting with beautiful people, like here I am today speaking with you, it's just, how lucky is that? To have these people that show up for me and go, hey, you're pretty cool. Do you want to do this, or do you want to do that? So I've built lots of connections, and there's so many powerful women too that I've connected with who help me. They don't let me fall, and they'll check in on me every now and then. They'll be like, how are you going with this? Dreams and goals that I've spoken to them about, and they message me and check in. How are you going with that? That's just incredible. I'm very, very blessed and very lucky to have connected with some amazing people on there.
Definitely. And that shows a lot about you, honestly. It's like attracts like.
Thank you.
And I think
I wish that I could. Oh, sorry.
Oh no.
I wish that I want to learn now to be able to extend myself to others, because I still hold back a bit. I'm still a bit shy, so I don't know how to reach out like they do, but they show me how, because they're doing it for me, and I know that one day when I break the barriers, I can do that too.
Yes. So what is next for you? You just started your own podcast. And what else?
So that podcast is it's the way that I obviously break through some of my mental barriers. What I would really, really love to do is my dream is to do a journal, to release a journal that has a manual in it on how to get to know I want to call it research yourself. And it's about researching yourself to find out who you are underneath all your conditioning and all the labels we give ourselves, because I journaled my journey into healing. I did a lot of self-healing through journaling. There's been times where I've kept journals since I was 11 years old. So it's always been a way that that was the only person that would listen to me was my journal. Like that's where I put all those thoughts. And I've learned that journaling is such a great way to get to know who you are. And there's been periods where I'll journal for 100 days straight and ask myself these big questions about life. And, I might go for 5 pages of one question.
Wow.
But that journaling has been crucial in getting to know who I am. So I would love to help people be able to journal.
And do you ever read your journals again?
Yes, I do. But it's not easy to read back on. There'll be times where, because because of the trauma, my memory becomes very hazy and I don't remember a lot. And then I'll pick up my journals, and then as soon as I read it, I'm like, oh yes, I remember that perfectly now.
Yeah. So it's reawakening these memories, retriggering.
It does.
Yeah. Okay.
It does. I don't go back to my journals often unless I'm searching for a particular memory that I want to work on.
Interesting. And this, you're talking about going back to childhood.
Yeah.
Like those journals.
Especially through my teenage years though.
Okay.
Because through my teenage years, I had a lot of trauma through then in my early 20s. And I know that it's affected me greatly today, but sometimes I don't realize how badly until I pick up that journal and go, oh, now I know.
Okay. And you talk about addiction as well, very openly. So can you share a little bit about that and where you are now? And if this is something that, like, a field, of interest that you help others with, and again, sharing your story does help others, but you can talk a little bit about that.
Yep. So, as I mentioned before, I started substance abuse at the age of 16. So it was with me up until the age of 32. So I thought that I was this extreme, energetic, fun, loud party girl. And when you take the addiction away, or the substance abuse and the alcohol, and I realized what was underneath all that was not who I thought. And I realized I'm actually a very highly sensitive person. I had no idea I was a sensitive person.
Wow.
So my story since the age of 32 is learning how I've been learning that I had PT. I didn't even know I had complex PTSD. So I've had to learn how to deal with my mental health. My mental health has been a huge part in my sobriety and and being clean. So I have to work on my mental health every single day to be a functioning human in the world. But I had to learn how to also just allow myself to have emotions, because I had lived my whole life never having permission to have emotion. And that's what the substance abuse was covering up, was all this hidden sensitivity and emotion and trauma that was underneath that. So that's when my healing journey actually began. But it hasn't been a fast healing journey, because it goes like this.
Yeah.
different direction.
Not linear.
It's not at all. And so I was sober for 4.5 years the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I broke my sobriety intentionally
I saw
at
the
around
post,
four and a yeah, I did it intentionally because I thought that, you know what, I've been sober for a while now, might be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it was for a few months. And
Mm-hmm.
then old Megan started to resurface, and I decided, I think it's about 7 months ago now, to be sober again. I never ever started my substance abuse again, though, thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, 5.5 years clean, 6 years clean from substance abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And that is actually the driver of everything. That is what I can't go back to.
Okay.
Because once that unravels for me, everything does. So, I can forgive myself for drinking again. I think it's normal and healthy sometimes to test your boundaries.
Yeah.
We change over the years, we change, and sometimes we can revisit old things just to see how they are. And I trust myself enough to know when I need to pull the plug on something.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm very, very sure now, there is no doubt about it, I want to be sober for the rest of my life.
Okay.
Because I've learnt to appreciate real.
Yes.
I want to be so real. I never want to be unreal again. I never want any moment to be unreal. And that is what, so being sober is not a chore anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The first 4.5 years was a chore.
Okay. A daily reminder, or just.
Yes. Chore. It was just like, how am I going to live another 10 years this way?
Yeah.
This time it's so different. It is, this is what I truly want for myself, because I never want any moment to be unreal ever again, because I'm willing to face whatever anything is in the moment, whether it be good, bad, messy, awkward, sad. I know that it can be what it is. I can accept it and I can move on from it. I've learnt to process things. So I don't need fake anymore.
Yes. You just nailed it on the head. The unreal. I quit drinking almost a year ago as well.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Recovering party girl, whatever label you want to put on, I was like, that's just me, and couldn't really see another way. And then made the decision, and it was a bit of a chore in the beginning for sure. I was like, okay, countdown. I had a short time frame, and then it just kept going. So I love what you said about the not wanting to be unreal. That's what it is.
Yeah. That's a pretty big motivation, right? Like I didn't even think of that the first time, because I still wanted things to be unreal. It was just that I was just pushing through, but I don't want anything unreal anymore. Like, to me, anything that's unreal is terrifying. Like, ew.
It's so true. And so in this podcast that you're doing, this is your, can you talk about the podcast again and what it is exactly? Are you interviewing people, or is it your stories?
I want to lead myself. It's my stories first, because I don't even know how to operate technology. Like,
you know how to do Instagram.
Thank goodness for that.
That's all you need.
But it's because I've also I've had ADHD my whole life as well. For me, focusing on anything that becomes overwhelming, I just instantly check out. But I've committed to this, and I can't check out of it, because even though it hurts my brain sometimes with the technology, but I do want to interview people eventually. It's just that I'm trying to learn how to actually just do it myself before I can even get anyone on there. But it's all a goal for me. But I do want to, it's a goal. I've got all these personal goals, and it's even just learning how to lead, because I've never been a leader. Like, to get someone on your podcast, you have to lead something. And I've never been a leader as such. I'm good working alone. But this is part of my growth too. These are the things that I want to work on to improve as a person, and, shape my confidence and just step up a little bit more. But the podcast is about my stories. It's about the daily hurdles that I face, and whatever the topic is that that's upset me that week or whatever's made me happy, I talk about on there. So it's just, it's about unraveling my conditioning, and just speaking my truth and guiding us all into self-acceptance, because that's what I want.
Okay. Yes. And you not being a leader, I mean, do you feel like people are magnetized to you? So you've almost been given this leadership. I mean, that's sort of the influencer thing. You know, I don't know if you like that term or not, but you are influencing a lot of people so that people are looking to you
Weird,
for
isn't
guidance.
it?
Yeah. So it's almost like it goes back, I think, to the identity thing that you are a leader. It's just
my perception of what I think is a leader.
Exactly.
Maybe, it's the part of you know what it is? It's taking control. Maybe that, like, there's an area where I'm afraid to take control there. I'm not sure what it is. It's something that holds me back, but it's something I'm very aware of. And I know that I've got to step into it soon. It's just giving myself that little push.
Yes. Do you feel that people are, cheering you on, supporting you? Does that ever, like, what do you do when you don't want to show up?
I didn't want to show up over the weekend, actually. I didn't, like, over the weekend, I wasn't feeling motivated at all. I was in a bit of a low mood. I'd been, like, in a bit of an anxiety, depressed state for about the last month. And I was just like, I do not want to do this. What did I do to overcome it is because I'd made the promise.
Yeah.
When you make a promise to yourself, it's not negotiable. If you give yourself an option to say, if you give yourself a way to check out, you'll check out. But when you have a hard promise, I've learned that my promises in my life to me were broken by many, many people. But I've learned that, you know, healing the self-betrayal comes with keeping my promises. And even when I don't want to, and I might be like, oh, I do not want to do this today, I do it because I can't break that promise to myself.
Okay.
I'm tired of that.
Yeah. That's huge. And sobriety, I think, plays into that as well. You know, the more every day that you are sober, it's like reminding yourself, putting yourself first, you know, and the showing up. So what kind of promise do you have? Is this like that you have to show up every day in some way? Is that the promise that you have?
The promise, well, I have different promises to myself. So the promise for my podcast is I've got to show up every week with that. You know, so, but that does require showing up every day because I've still got to formulate ideas. I do try to write the podcast because what happens is if I don't have a guide in my head, because of the anxiety, sometimes I can completely freeze up.
Yeah.
And nothing comes out. And look, that's not going to be great to listen to.
Anyway.
So I have to have like this little guide and a structure. But I don't believe I'll need that structure forever.
No.
I think one day I'll be like you and I will just be able to just come on and talk. But for now, I need a bit of structure to be able, I guess that's the thing as well. When you step out, sometimes you need a bit of structure to build the foundation.
Definitely.
Before you can just be like, hey, it's me. Sometimes there can be, you got to put in a structure.
Yes. And I think when you're putting something out there, it's for other people as well, so that they can have something that's like, you know, cleaner and more takeaways. I'm like the worst. I just kind of dive in. But I mean, I've had many questions I didn't ask you because I'm like, you know, you just never know. It's, I'm all about the flow, but I know that, it's always good to have a bit of a structure. And I think, and then you'll find like what works for you and what, you know, length and everything else. And I think it's really inspiring that you're pushing yourself. You're like continuing to push yourself and document everything.
Yeah. It's all working together. It's really crazy how I feel that the universe has given me such a gift with what I have access to. I can't deny that I've been given that gift. And at times, you know, I can feel really bad with, you know, my complex PTSD and things like that. I can have really bad times, but I still know that I've got a gift with what the world's given me with this platform, and I can't let that go to waste.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Sounds like you take it very seriously, which
I
it is a
do.
platform. It's a big ripple effect to so many people. So what do you want to be known for?
Ooh. I want to be known for
Or
I
many
want to
things,
be
but
known for being real. Like
yeah,
it's
that's your
being
thing.
real.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wanted to be known for. Real.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Yep.
to me, being told I'm real is the biggest compliment I can ever be given, because when you've had a whole life where you weren't allowed to be real, you weren't
Mm-hmm.
allowed to be yourself and to be complimented for being yourself, it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
thanks. It's so simple.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
It is so simple. What do you think? Okay, so you have the conditioning from childhood, but as a culture and a society, what is that? What are we like? What are we afraid of? What's your perception on that?
That um, I have a lot of internalized misogyny,
Mm,
and
mm,
like I started about a year ago looking at feminism
mhm,
and following feminist accounts, and and I kind of didn't know how badly affected I was by that until
mhm,
I started looking into it and realizing that like that's a massive cage that I need to break out of, because all of that, it actually stops me from showing up as well.
mm. Okay.
That's definitely a cage.
Yes. So this is like I'm personally asking, of course, for other people but myself, because a lot of people in my industry, the coaching, personal development, wellness, healing industry, there is so much showing up, like behind the scenes of everything. We get the whole spectrum of people's lives. And in your case, that has propelled you like to the forefront, is because you were so real, like with everything. Um, what do you feel is, I don't know, like a balance there? Because I don't show much. That's my question. Is like, how much is appropriate? Because if you're selling in a sense, you're selling your brand, and then brands are coming
Mm-hmm,
to you, right? So you're
mm-hmm,
almost like, um, your story is your brand.
mm-hmm.
I don't.
So there's
Yeah.
been times where I've gone offline for like 2 months at a time,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that, and do you know what? Even my audience know this now, that when I go offline for a couple of months, it's because I'm processing things. So they
Mm-hmm.
even know that sometimes I need to take a break because I will
Yeah.
not show up inauthentically.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't think of anything worse than not feeling it in my soul and putting a
Mm-hmm.
camera in front of my face. So I'll tell them I'm not feeling okay and I need a break. So it's even being
Okay.
authentic in the fact that I'm not feeling it and I just need to go
Mm-hmm.
away for a bit and process. During those times, I might repost some resources
Mm-hmm.
about what, like psychology posts and things
Mm-hmm.
like that, to help others, because I'm identifying with it. I might not have a voice to speak about it, but I'll put it out there. And then sometimes I don't post to my news feed for, I've gone like three months not posting to my news feed because I can't show up inauthentically. I can't do that. So
Mm.
I respect the fact that sometimes it's okay to have a break. It's
Okay.
okay to process what you're going through.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you for that, because it is the intention behind. It sounds like if you're not real, then it's not worth it.
It's not, because
Yeah.
you're selling you're not selling your soul, but you're betraying yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You like
Yeah.
there's got to be, you got to know what's going on the inside. And if you're putting that camera in front of your face and it feels like a betrayal, don't do it,
Mm.
because then you're betraying your audience, because they can sense that.
Mm-hmm.
So tell them, I'm not well today. I'm really shit today. Things are shit and I can't be here. Or, even at times I might get on and cry with like snot running down my face because there's no one to cry to. And, right there in that moment, I need to have a cry to someone that cares. But then there'll be times where I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, giving yourself that permission to take care of yourself if you need to.
Mm-hmm. And you feel safe. And clearly, I mean, you've broken down these walls between a lot of unknown people, so there's a safety there.
Social media, the Instagram piece is very safe for me now. I very rarely get any anxiety at all about anything I post in my stories, my news feed. I'm comfortable because I got comfortable with people not liking me, as in losing my audience, losing 7,000 followers or whatever. I got comfortable with that. So that made me more comfortable in being more authentic. So I just forgot what I was saying there.
Yeah, it was so good because it's that external validation that so many people get caught up in.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's a trap.
Mm-hmm. So, do you have is your motivation to build and keep building your following, or is it just is that secondary now?
It's secondary. If I thought about building, for me, building my following, intentionally, but in saying that, I'm very happy with what I got, but I understand why anyone would want to build their audience, and there's no judgment there. It's too much pressure for me though, because I have, I've got 2 special needs boys. I work full time. Wow. I can only do what I can do. I've got my podcast that keeps me busy when I don't have the children. So I've got a social group. So, to sit there and build, intentionally build an audience takes a lot of time and effort, and I don't have it. I don't have that.
Okay. And
so I just do whatever I do.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And it's happening. It already happened.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm so lucky. Yeah, it did. So lucky.
Yeah. It's almost like it's the law of attraction in a way where when you push for something, it doesn't happen, or, you're just letting it flow.
And, some people will say, don't say it's just luck. You worked really hard for that. Mm-hmm. Yes, I did. But someone could be out there doing the same thing as me and they don't get that.
Right.
It's just, so there is an element of a blessing. And I'm not going to say that that's not, I'm blessed and I'm so lucky to have that. So I'm very grateful for it.
Mm-hmm. And that gratitude is the magnet as well for more.
Totally. Yes.
So how can people find your Instagram? Of course, I'll put it in the show notes, but you hang out all the time. Always showing up.
I especially in my stories. I try to do that in there every day, but I'm at entirely Koala Queen. It's entirely _Koala Queen. But I think you can just find, if you even put in Koala Queen, I'm pretty sure that I come up with that.
That's you. Yeah. You're claiming that. It's awesome. And I love following your journey. Again, you're so real. And I think it's that permission for other people to do the same. And this has been really enlightening personally. And I think so many people will connect to it as well, because we need a lot more real in this world, especially.
I couldn't agree more.
Yes, exactly. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed today too.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoy the show, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts. It makes a big difference for visibility. And even better, share this episode with a friend. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode every other Wednesday. If you're interested in working together to elevate your online presence, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me on Instagram at whereiswillow. I also hang out on LinkedIn, Willow McDonough. Until then, cheers to carving your own fucking path. I love you.